All right. I'm so happy to introduce, I feel like an old friend, although we're brand new friends. We can call ourselves virtual friends, Brooke Ahlberg. And she's joining us tonight speaking and sharing her story about starting a chapter of Share Parents of Utah. And Brooke is moved to Park City about 6 years ago. She's a Texan, and she and her husband experienced some loss, infertility, and a miscarriage, and a late term loss. And through that journey, she knew that she didn't have to drive so far and wanted to offer these services and this support with Summit and Wasatch County. And so Brooke joins us tonight to share her story and be a resource for us, as we know that we enjoy the joys of parenting, but often there's loss and we all need support. It's what really makes us stronger. So thank you so much, Brooke, for sharing, being vulnerable with us tonight, and sharing this not only with who's ever here tonight, but also for those that listen after. So thank you. Brooke, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. I do appreciate it. I was kind of sitting down and, putting some thoughts together. And I think more than anything, trying to organize some of ththese thoughts on what direction I wanted to go. And I had the realization a year ago today, I actually was driving through a snowstorm. I think we all could, be praying for one of those at this point in time. But I was driving through a snowstorm heading to what was going to be one of my last WIN meetings, one of the Women's Inspired Network meetings. And I had to go tell my board members, oh, I'm actually being induced on Friday. This is going to be it for a while, and kind of feeling frustrated and having some mixed emotions about that, because I wasn't ready to have this baby. I don't think we're ever really ready, but we were 3 weeks early, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing all the right things. And really how this all got started was because my blood pressure got very, very high about week 35. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get my blood pressure down, despite the, trimester appropriate exercise and trying to get sleep and, eat all the right things and do all these right things and keep my stress level down based on my prior experience of pregnancy. Here we are, and I will just never forget the doctor saying, you've earned your right to an early delivery. Well, this wasn't in my plan. And I had to have a moment where I checked myself and kind of go back to the 3-page birth plan that I had given the doctor and go back to the 3rd page, the last bullet point that was bold, that basically said, above all, don't let me go home empty-handed this time. And that's when I had to realize, you know what, 3 weeks early, let's do this. So to kind of back up a little bit before this, as Sarah did mention, I am a Texas girl, and I never thought I would leave Texas. Us crazy Texans, we think the world does end when you cross the border. If I was actually going to leave, I always kind of wanted to tap into my inner Sex in the City self. I've just probably dated myself as well there. And I was going to go to Manhattan and have a laptop, a dog, a gay boyfriend, and a high-rise apartment. So in 2014, my straight husband and I go west, and here we are. We're in Park City, Utah. Took me a while to get acclimated, but found myself, kind of doing things that I never thought I would do, and really kind of, continuing to be that one to focus on my career. I was in hospitality before I moved here, and I always kind of prided myself on being the girl that could run laps around the men in the restaurant in my stilettos and in my pencil skirt. But here I am, and I've now traded this for ski pants and Sorels. And we're doing these things and, enjoying life. But it was, like I said, about 2 years in, all of a sudden something was kind of nagging at me, and I didn't feel as fulfilled with the career or with the social aspect that I think had always been enough for me. And I never believed in that biological clock, but let me tell you, that thing was knocking. And I really had to kind of do some soul searching to go, is this the direction and where I think I want to go? Do I want a family? Because mind you, my husband and I had these conversations, and I said, no, that's just not my thing. That's just not my thing. I'm going to, like I said, be a career woman. I'm going to, do all of these things. And so that was very interesting to me at this point. And I think part of it was coming here and being at a slower pace and getting to experience different things that opened me up to, like I said, just trying different things in general and changing my own rules. So I went to my husband and I said, listen, this is really enough for me to come to you and you know, bring this up that I think I want to start a family. And he did look at me like I had a third eyeball. He also looked at me with a twinkle in his eye and thought, let's get started right away. So we did, like couples, we tried for about a year. Nothing really happened. We, you know, really not even a scare. So at that point, we sought out fertility treatments. And for any of those mamas out there that, you know, are past the age of 35, we all know the message that gets told to us. You're geriatric. Your ovaries are geriatric. You're damn near dead. What are we doing? So I was 36, and that was kind of the message that was told to me. But I said, let's do the test. Let's see what this looks like. And I, you know, that consult, old Dr. Hadasaka kind of confirmed it. Yes, your ovaries, they're old and you have very few of them. Oh, good. This is wonderful. That's really wonderful for the ego. And my husband and Dr. Hadasaka, you know, were trying not to fist bump across the table. I guess he was, you know, in strong like bull and ready to go. So we started this process. First time it didn't take, and that's, I think, pretty normal when you start this journey. Lo and behold, second IUI, we were pregnant. And we were shocked, surprised, excited, all of the emotions that come with it, especially the fact that I was given a 5% chance to get pregnant. You know, we go in, we see, you know, the little ultrasound, and you hear a heartbeat, and you get past the 12-week mark, which I think is society's cruel joke on all women, because it's, oh, but you're safe. You're safe now. You're past that first trimester, and that's the farthest thing away from the truth. And even when we got past that point, you know, we still were cautious. I was a little older, and we waited. It was like 16 weeks until we, you know, actually did a formal announcement. It was 17 weeks before I told my office, and right about that 18 week, it was right around Halloween. We had a grand gender reveal and Halloween costumes, big Halloween party, and a dear friend of mine had, you know, smoke bombs and a pumpkin, and we lit it up, and boy, oh boy, it's a boy, and we see blue, and we're super excited. And here we go. We're on this journey. We're doing this. We went to our 20-week ultrasound a couple weeks later, and that's really kind of where everything started to shift for us. You know, we're very naive. First pregnancy, we don't know what to expect. So we go in and we hear a heartbeat, and we see little legs. We confirm it's a boy. You know, we're, you know, seeing arms, legs, everything else. And we did notice when we got to his head that the ultrasound tech was, you know, a little more cautious. She seemed to slow down. But again, first time mom, I didn't know anything. I just thought, well, it makes sense. It's the head, right? We're going to take some time. And then you could feel the shift in the room. You could feel the energy shift. And then, bless her heart, her attempt to try to distract us, she took the little CD out of the machine and put it up on the TV to have, oh, here, watch the ultrasound pictures. I need to go get a second opinion. I'm going to get the doctor. And I remember that moment, you know, my husband and I were going, no, it's going to be okay. You know, it's going to be fine, as there is a pit in our stomach. And it was one of those moments where the room seems to get very, very close. It's very, very heavy. And it's the ticking of the clock, the tick, tick, tick that you, it's just almost annoying, and it's slow. And what appeared or felt like 30, 40 minutes, I know was only a couple of minutes. And the doctor did come in, and he was a very direct man. And he said, listen, I'm about to tell you probably some of the worst news you'll receive, and you've got a very hard decision to make. They said, your son has encephalocele. And I did not personally know what that was. My husband did. And I've never seen this strong man collapse over like this. We were holding hands. He removed his hand, and he just kind of fell into his knees, and just kept shaking his head and saying no, because he knew that there was not a good outcome to this. And there wasn't. At that point, I was trying not to have a Charlie Brown moment of wah, 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 wah. I knew I needed to pay attention. I knew I needed to hear what was in front of us. And there were essentially three options. One of them being if he were to make it full term, he would immediately have to have surgeries. He would be on breathing tubes, he would be on feeding tubes, he would be on catheters. There would be no quality of life. We were asked if we both worked, and we said yes. They said one of you never will again. You will need around the clock care. You will have to have, assistance, and you'll likely have to leave Park City and go someplace where you will have family to help in this journey that you're on. And my apologies, let me back up. I don't know if you know what encephalocele is. I certainly did not. It is a neural tube disorder where it is something that happens in very, very early gestation. Probably happens even before a lot of women know they're pregnant, about that 4 and 5 week mark. I knew because I was doing fertility, so you kind of find these things out a little earlier. But as early as that, it's where the skull doesn't completely form around and the brains are on the outside of the head. And even as early as 20 weeks at that halfway point, there was so much swelling on the brain that there just wasn't really any quality of life, like I said, if he were to make it to that. The other option was obviously not making it and having to go in and deliver a baby that is sleeping, or having the option to go ahead and deliver early with the chance that we may get to hold him and that he may be alive when he is born. And that was the route that we personally chose that was best for us. There was about a week that we had to make this decision just because of some of the Utah laws. So we get delivered these three options. We actually drove home separately because I work in Salt Lake, and my husband drove up the canyon and met me for this 20-week ultrasound. I mean, we just had absolutely no idea that something like this could happen. So we went in our respective cars. And I remember for a girl who doesn't cry a whole lot, it was like I couldn't turn off the waterworks. And that lovingly became coined as the canyon cry, because I would go, when I went back to work, it was something about that canyon. That's just when I felt like I could be safe and in my car and kind of release. But we had about a week. We met with, anybody who would talk to us about it, social workers, pediatric neurologists. And, there's a lot of technology out there that you can do in utero. And unfortunately, this is not one where they're not advanced enough to be able to do that. So we went in, I was very naive. I don't think I knew what I was getting myself into to go deliver this baby. One thing that I hope through SHARE and organizations like this is to even help educate hospital staff, because I remember having to check in and explain multiple times, I don't need insurance for my baby. Please keep that, quit asking me. And those are, I think, you just don't think about it. And I hope that, again, groups like this, that maybe we can help try to educate in that regard of not everybody goes home with the baby just because you go in and deliver one. We went in, it was supposed to be about a 10 to 12 hour process. It turned out to be 36 hours. It was the full on labor. Kind of anything could happen, did happen. I don't know. I mean, you almost have to giggle at it a little bit, but at the end of all of it, he was born alive, and we were very, very grateful because he was with us. He took his first breaths with us, and he took his last with us. And that is something that I will always be very grateful. And I think that was the switch for me, that I was like, I have to find gratitude and find a purpose for this moment, and how to continue to pay tribute to my son and give him that dignity that he deserves. We went home the next day. The following day was Thanksgiving. Don't really remember Thanksgiving of 2017. And then Black Friday took on a whole new meaning for us. At that point, I did seek out some personal therapy, and therefore they introduced me to the Share Parents of Utah group. It turns out that they don't actually do a ton of service at Intermountain. They are a facilitator at many of the other hospitals, and a big part of what they do is when there is a loss like this, they will go into the hospital and be just a listening ear, an open heart, provide any sort of support that they can to the parents and the families that experience this. And a big thing that they do in fundraise for is they do hand and feet molds. And it's just a little memento that parents get to take with them, or to have with them to remind them of their babies. And I know those are something that I delicately placed up on a high shelf. And God forbid if there's a fire, that's the first thing I'm going after. But that is a big part of what they do, are these molds, in providing that support. There are monthly meetings all across Utah. And ironically enough, until this month, there was not anything here in our area. And by being able to share my story, I realized what a need that there was to get something here in this area, and to do some collaborations with groups like Hive to provide that support. Because the worst thing is to feel isolated, and that you're alone and not know how to navigate a situation like this. I remember for me, because you do go through the delivery process, there is postpartum, everything is there, your milk comes in, everything's there. You just don't have a baby. And it's nice to have those resources there. I always say this is a really crappy club to be a part of, but thank God for these crappy clubs that are there for us. So I started attending the share meetings, and I remember I was probably about 6 weeks out before I really started going. And I do think part of it was just they were so far, and my want to was broken a little bit. And but I started attending the meetings, and me going through that process, and the further and further along, or a way that I got from the loss, and being able to mentor provided so much healing for me, along with hopefully others. There is a couple that will always stand out in my mind. It was Luke and Lena. They were a very, very young couple. They lost at 38 weeks. This Lena didn't speak for probably the first 6 months. Her husband did all of the speaking on her behalf. But why I bring her up is because they didn't know about any groups that were out there. And they went through this for probably 4 or 5 months by themselves, trying to figure this out. And I never want anybody to feel that loss and feel that isolated. And it just made a huge impact on kind of my mission of, I want to be able to do this when I get to a place that I feel like I can mentally and emotionally do it. So we go through the process with Share. They also provide, partnerships with infertility organizations as well out there. I did seek out some counseling as we moved through this process. We started trying again exactly a year after we found out we were pregnant. And at this point, I was already kind of an older mama anyway. I was creeping on 40. And so it was kind of that panic thing a little bit, not so much that I think 40's old, just from a science standpoint of knowing where I started, and that the chances were getting, less and less that this could potentially happen again. So we did start this process. We did have an early term miscarriage in September, decided to take the holidays off that year, and we started with round 8 in January. We continued through doing that, but I have to tell you, at that point, living my life by my 28-day cycle or whatever it was, shots and medication was starting to get really daunting. That is kind of where I reached out and was going to some fertility counselors to just try to navigate that. You've got the loss, and then you've got the fertility, and it just can be a very, very lonely place for families and women. And I was very grateful to have that support there, because what I was finding was, I'm typically a glass half full kind of gal, but things like baby announcements and things like baby showers and just seeing babies for the girl who didn't want them became more and more difficult, and harder to kind of muddle through. And I'll never forget when we started, back at it, that round 8. A very good friend of mine, we met for lunch, and bless her heart, I don't think she knew how to tell me, because she had gone through this whole thing with me, that she was pregnant. And that was a really, really hard one for me. And I think the reason it was so hard was because this wasn't something they really wanted. They sort of said, let's give it a shot. Well, guess what? He shoots, he scores, and they're good. And that was the first time those words came out of my mouth of, this isn't fair. And I never wanted to be that person. because life isn't easy and life isn't fair. We all have our struggles. We all have those moments that the rug gets pulled out from underneath us. But that one hurt. And I remember coming home, having to muddle through the day, go into the meeting, because I work in a male dominated industry and we're fine and we're good and we've got this. And I remember coming home and walking in the door and dropping my bags and falling to my knees. And I just said, so-and-so is pregnant. And I think it even shocked my husband because it just wasn't who we expected, and to have it happen so easily. So there was that whole process we were working through. We got to IUI number 10, and my doctor kind of said, how much more do you want to do? And he was hesitant to do the IVF, because we were having such struggles to put us through that, and from a financial perspective. And I said, give me one more. I said, give me lucky number 11. And if it doesn't happen, I said, I promise you, I will walk away and I'll find, either an egg donor, or maybe, we have a really good life, and just being grateful for the life that we have. And lucky number 11, we got pregnant. Of course, then we have a whole other journey that starts. And there's an article in Still Standing magazine called the 40 Longest Weeks. And it talks about, after you go through a loss like that, what pregnancy looks like, and how the innocence of pregnancy gets snapped away from you. And I tried really hard to not go down the path. And though I think it was some sort of self-preservation and protecting myself of, how am I going to explain to the family and friends when we have another loss? And it's kind of sick and twisted, and I get that. But I was like, but how would I deal with that? And how would I do it? And, who would I go to? And I guess it was about 17 weeks when we did have a little bit of a scare. I realized that the stress that I was putting on myself and my body was going to be worse than anything that could potentially happen again. And I worked really hard to try to go, I need to enjoy this, because this could be it. Again, a little older. It was hard enough to get here. Enjoy this moment. Enjoy the glow. Enjoy the fact that your hair is thick. Enjoy the hemorrhoids. Enjoy the leg cramps. Everything that comes with this. Try to enjoy this moment. And all in all, it was a pretty seamless pregnancy and delivery. Some of the things that went on, pretty normal, but I think for us, we were just still so paranoid until we actually put him in that car seat and drove up that canyon. That everything was just heightened, but all in all, pretty seamless. And here we are, and this little guy is going to be a year old, which is so hard to believe. But a big part of me getting kind of to sit down, even after a year after 2020, and kind of seeing where I was a year ago today, where I am. I'm just appreciative that you have allowed me to kind of share my story, and hope to continue to share, because obviously there's healing that's provided for me. It's a way I get to parent my son, and also just letting people know that you're not alone. You're not alone, and the sun does come out again. You will put pants on again. You will never forget. But we have choices as human beings and as women on how we're going to navigate this and try to be the best person that we can be. And I go back, and I will kind of close it with this couple, Luke and Lena. Again, like I said, she didn't say much. I always just wanted to reach out and hug her, but I didn't want to scare her either. But I finally talked to her the first time at one of the remembrance walks. And by the second one, she had a little boy. And by this last October, we saw her again. And it was one of those things, oh, hey, we happened to park next to each other and we waved. And she didn't know that we had Jack, and we started pulling out a stroller out of the back of the car. And I just heard her say, you have a stroller. You have a stroller. And something that is so insignificant for us in those shoes, we have a stroller. And that is what I hope to be able to do here in Park City, is to be able to give that hope that these women and these families, no matter how much it hurts, that sun will come out and you will pull a stroller out again, and there are resources to help. Our meetings are starting via Zoom. This month, it's going to be the fourth Thursday of every month. And then hopefully we get to start meeting in person next month, and we're going to be meeting at Mountain Life Church. And it's 7 to 9:30. And quite honestly, we'll stay as long as anybody needs. So it's just, I'm excited to have it here and to continue to do the collaboration and be able to provide those resources that were provided to me. So ladies, thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. That was beautiful and just such an amazing story. And thank you so much for sharing and for starting a Shared Parents of Utah here in Park City, because your story brought the attention that there is not support up here for moms and families. And so we're just so grateful that you're leading that charge here in Summit County. So thank you.
Thank you.
I love the word that Glennon Doyle uses, brutal, because it's brutal, your story, and it's so beautiful. And I really echo what Perry just said. And I did have a couple questions. One of my questions is how you had mentioned that like it wasn't that intertwined with IMC. Is that still like a current status, or are you able to partner with the hospital, or like how do you mainly, I mean, talking to our group and the Mountain Life Church is a great start, but my question is about the hospital and then other channels that you're able to share out.
My understanding is with the main Intermountain in Murray is because they have such support in-house, that it's because that's where I even got my molds. The hospital did everything, but I know with like St. Mark's and then even some of the other smaller branches of the Intermountain group, they do go into the hospital and partner up with them and provide the information and the molds and just like I said, just kind of a listening ear at that point. But that is a good question. I need to ask is that the main reason that's kind of deterring them, or is there an option to have them come in? I'm sure if somebody called, they would not deny it. I just think those resources are available within the hospital, which is why they're not readily the go-to, I guess.
Brooke, I'm interested to hear a little bit more about how the meetings are structured. So, I mean, is there structure? Is it free form? Is there kind of a process that you go through, or, for somebody who's coming in newer in this situation versus somebody who's, further out dealing with it? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So there is some structure to it. It is a non-denominational organization. They always kind of read, I don't want to say rules, but just kind of the standards that are there. And it's everything from it's okay to swear, but please keep it to a minimum. This is a judgment-free, zone. This is a place to feel free to, say what you need to. And there's always a topic. And I think that's more of, we actually just had this conversation. Do we continue on with the topics as we start our meetings? What do we do? And we all kind of agreed it's nice to have a piece of paper with the topic and some talking points, because sometimes it's hard and sometimes people don't want to open up. And at least if it's maybe a topic that speaks to them, they'll feel more comfortable doing it, and it kind of keeps things going. A lot of times I do find it sort of organically goes in the direction it's meant to go based on who's there and what everybody needs to, express at that moment. But we do start off after we kind of read, what it is. Everybody does get to go around and at least give a glimpse of what their story is. And then at that point, they can kind of elaborate should they choose to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for that. Because we always want to provide that insight for people who are watching this. The other thing, question that I have for you is, when we've had a couple events talking about infancy and pregnancy loss, and one thing that we found was valuable was for friends and family, people who are not necessarily in that nuclear situation, like the nuclear family or immediately experiencing it. People who want to help support but don't necessarily know how. So we like to get a little bit of an information about things that helped you from friends or family, and then also things that they shouldn't do, that they shouldn't say, you know, because a lot of you, it's like, they're just trying to connect. They're just trying to like, that's what they bring forward, but it ends up actually being offensive to the person who's gone through it. So anything you've experienced like that on the positive and negative side for people to learn from, we would appreciate you sharing.
Absolutely. I actually did a talk for the WIN group a couple of months ago, and it was about patience, and it kind of was on that topic of people say really stupid things.
Yeah.
And they can have the best of intentions, and you know, bless their hearts, it just comes across like, are you kidding me? You know, one example was a coworker that he didn't know what to say to me, but I was working a little late and I'm walking out the door and he made the comment, well, at least you don't have to worry about buying diapers and formula. Okay. And again, I also realize I kind of giggle in weird moments on that, something I found out about myself, and I'm going, what? But to know him, he was trying.
Yeah.
Another thing is I had a family member who sat in my kitchen and said, we're praying for a new baby. And I thought, well, that's lovely, but I kind of like the one I had. I mean, really? Again, I think it's being patient with ourselves and saying it is okay to go, huh? And also trying to be patient with the people who may be saying this and trying to know where they're coming from. These two individuals, they didn't mean anything, but yeah, I was like, ow, that hurt a little. Some people just say stupid things, and it's kind of mean. One thing, and my apologies, I kind of skipped over this. The groups that they do have throughout the month, they've got different groups. Most of them are geared towards couples. Men do attend this. It is predominantly women, but it is open to men as well. And I think that's a big key to this is when you're dealing with this situation and when people have said, do you have any advice? And then one of it is, don't forget about the dads. They get really lost in this situation. They are, you know, trying to navigate their own feelings on what just happened, and at the same time still pick up the pieces from their wife. So that would be one piece of advice, and something that I know meant a lot is ask that dad, how are you doing? Just because they went back to work a week later doesn't mean they're okay. Just means they don't know what to do with themselves, and so they're gonna provide. So that is something that is unique to what we are doing here in Park City. Is it's actually my husband and I were both facilitators for this meeting to try to open it up to make men feel more comfortable about coming in. And depending on how this goes, it may be something that we do kind of a spinoff and try to have a meeting just for men, because they do grieve differently. They do handle emotions differently than we do, and try to provide that safe space for them. They also provide, groups for families as a whole. And then they also do provide grandparent support groups as well. And that's kind of, I guess, circling back a little bit to your question of kind of helping them know how to deal with their loss, because they had a loss too. They were excited about this grandbaby and now they're dealing with it, but yet they're hurting for their children. So there's a lot of different things that they are providing in different ways to try to help that, show that support.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That's something that we've talked about with Hive a little bit in terms of we want to incorporate the dads into this as well, because like you said, a lot of times they get lost, right? But that the dads and the grandparents, I think that those are really, really valuable assets because they're huge support systems for the family as well, and they've experienced it too. One thing I was wondering was that everybody, you know, people have different communication styles, they have different coping styles. Some people, I wonder if you can recommend any books or other resources that you found were helpful, because some people might feel comfortable diving into that first or in conjunction with your meetings. So is there anything that you found beneficial or helpful, enlightening, or
Absolutely. I did start reading a book shortly after we got home, and it was Broken Heart, Empty Cradle. Horrible name. And you know what, ladies, let me do this. I do have a couple of them. Um, I can send that over to you. I can't, I'm kind of blanking on some of the other names of those books, but what I found was some of them were a little bit more on the spiritual level, which is sometimes what people need and they gravitate to. And then some of the other ones were a little bit more on just kind of the scientific side of it. On, you know, I know one thing that even did kind of help me was I was like, I found myself doing this and I was like, okay, losing my mind over here. And the therapist I was seeing said, no, that's actually, again, a very natural reaction. As a mom, you have a baby, you rock. It's a very normal instinct. So just kind of getting the scientific and biological side of the postpartum, along with that spiritual side was kind of, for me, a nice hybrid. So I will send over some names of those books that, you know, that might be helpful for different people. And kind of to circle back to one of your questions I thought I just had is, you know, what is helpful, because people don't know what to do. You know, death is weird. And then you know, you throw infant baby death on it, it gets real weird. I mean, let's just be honest. And people don't know what to do. And it is awkward. And I think it's one of those things that if you want to do something, just do it. Just do it. And I think listen. And a big thing for myself and a lot of the women that I've gotten quite close to is use their name. You know, use that baby's name. Don't act like they didn't exist. There's nothing more. And I think that goes with any loss, not just isolated to this, whether it's a spouse, a sister, a dear friend, a parent. You want to hear those stories. You want to hear their name being used in those memories. It's just, unfortunately, in this situation, most people didn't get that. But listen and use their name, and that's what I've tried to do, is make it a very normal thing. So when I say Pax, I say Pax Carlin, you know, those in my circle, they know, and it's that weirdness is, you know, not there like it was. And I think this past year with just even, you know, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend and different couples like that who, not fortunately, that's the wrong use of words, but were in a bigger spotlight to share that story, has opened it up for conversation to try to make it as normal as it can be. I mean, let's be honest, this isn't a normal thing. But to bring out the conversation, say it's okay to talk about it. So I know that was what was helpful. And if you want to do something, just do it. And I think especially with those who have children, we did not have children. It was just us and our fur babes, and thank God for them. But I think some of those couples and friends that I've made through the group who had younger children, when they did have a neighbor or somebody, a cousin or some family member, just come over and say, I'm taking, you know, so-and-so, and we're going to go to the park. Take a couple minutes for yourself. Those little things are very, very helpful.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I do think that elevating the conversation, I think it makes it really real, you know, really relatable to read, you know, whether you hear it, you know, from someone you know or you don't know, you just you grow that compassion. So I do think that is important. I had a question about the scope of loss in share parents. Is it focused more on late term and stillbirth, or do you see people who lost a baby at 12 weeks or 15 weeks? Do they come to the meeting at all once or not? Generally, you're like, what's your thought on that?
It's open to all. I mean, loss is loss. And whether it's at 6 weeks or 16 or 36, listen, it hurts. It does. And it is an organization that is open to all. I do find those who have more of an early term miscarriage maybe aren't in the group as long. You know, it's a couple of months. and then they, can exit out to, maybe it's the PAL group, the pregnancy after loss, or they find other resources. But it is absolutely open to anybody who just needs to feel like, they're in a safe space. Because what's my 10 may not be somebody else's, and vice versa. So we want to make sure we can supply that for anyone.
Mm-hmm. That's really great, because I know even when we started Hive, we were having conversations with someone who was like, I think we need a bereavement group up here. And, I know that, I'm happy to hear that and not surprised, but that it is the full spectrum, because,
Absolutely.
and, if it's like the fourth Thursday at 7:00, like, it's just like, that's when it is,
Right.
it sounds like you've made a commitment to make it consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very consistent. And I wanted to do that, because if we do even start via Zoom, that when we can meet in person, everybody, it's kind of, scheduled in, and people can pop in and out. And I mean, anybody who's gone through grief of any time, we all know it's ebbs and flows, and there's triggers, and somebody may come and they feel better, and something happens, and then they come back, and, after being gone for a little bit. So it's just very much of an open forum, and in a safe place on whatever it is that an individual or couple or family needs at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love that your husband is going to be with you. What's his name?
His name is Josh.
Josh. Okay, I'm going to make a note of that. I please thank him, because I think that's really brave and vulnerable and just rad. Like, I really
tell him that. And I do think he feels a little vulnerable with it, but at the same time, we saw that there's a real need for it.
I love it. And again, it's just normalizing it, because it's just saying, like, I'm here too. So I really appreciate it. We focus, I think, a lot about women and, minorities, and, but then you flip a situation, and a birth loss, the emphasis is on the woman. And all of a sudden you're like, the man is the minority in this, or, or the
right.
We don't want anyone less than, everyone has the heart. So anyway, okay. Those are my questions.
Absolutely. So no, I was able to log on in October when y'all had the panel of speakers, and that was awesome to hear. And I think that's when I did reach out and said, okay, we got to get this going. We got to get this going. There are women here that need this. And I sometimes feel like I never wanted to come across that, poor me, I'm such a victim. That's not it at all. It's, I'm not isolated. And I think that's the whole point, is I'm not some weird isolated case over here. There are so many women who have dealt with this on some level, or know of somebody that has. And until we start talking about it, people don't know. And I don't know. I mean, it's just, I think that's why I'm like, I want to share, and I appreciate these opportunities to do so, because there's a need. I mean, there was these beautiful, heart-wrenching stories that we all heard a few months ago. And I was like, but they need us. And I think that collaboration is so great, because I know when I had the opportunity to meet Perry, it was shortly after I really kind of opened up about it for the WIN group. And I love the fact that the mission is, now what do we do? Now we're parents, right? Now we're just still going to continue to worry and do all this. And how do we navigate that? So you need it, I think, through all these different stages that we go through. This is tough work. I mean, this is not easy. So.
And maybe next October too. I mean, it's 10 months away, but I could see us maybe partnering up together for, because we did have that panel for the infancy loss month. And again, just bringing that awareness, so I'm so happy. I'm so happy to know your story so intimately. And I just really appreciate you being so rad yourself and so strong. And I'm sorry.
I can't wait till we can speak in person. So
I'm a hugger too.
I know. That's kind of how I am. But no, it is different speaking in this manner versus being in person. I do think there's a little more impact, but no, I mean, I hope it I'm glad it resonated a little bit, and we can kind of see where we can go from here. So it's been awesome.
So on that note, Brooke, how are you getting the word out? How can we help you? How can we help normalize these conversations? Because, through personal connections, friends, things that sort, and just as the mission of Hive, like we want to talk about the things that are commonly experienced, uncommonly experienced, but aren't talked about. Like we want to get those things out in the open, and we want to know how we can support you in your organization and help, like I said, normalize the conversation and make it part of mainstream. Is it, purely promoting your monthly meetings? Like, give us a little rundown.
Mm-hmm. So I do know that there's social media presence, like anything.
Yeah.
I do know they do Instagram and your Facebooks. That is something, actually, I've got a meeting on Friday with somebody who's kind of our mentor as facilitators on kind of the ins and outs, because that was a question that I have. I see the stuff on Facebook, if you follow the group, and the different things like that, but want to get a better understanding of how they are promoting it. I do know they do text message and things like that as well, but I do think there's an opportunity to continue spreading the word outside of, just websites, social media, text, things like that. I'm not sure if there's any sort of, things we can and can't do. And that's actually why I'm having that conversation on Friday, kind of knowing that we were going to start some of these conversations and see, if they have any adversity to it. I don't feel like there is, but always good to ask. So that's something, if I can get back to you on that would be amazing. And just go kind of, this is what I found out.
Absolutely. We always send up follow-up emails with your resource lists, anything that we can provide our groups.
And hopefully as we grow, our intention is to be a hub of all things,
Right.
family. So, my hope would be that, we just bring you along. So when we do sit down with the hospital, like, and we can say, like, here are some other resources that are going on, because that's why we're here. Like, we don't want to replicate anything, but I would want anyone who was experiencing this and, in Heber or here or anywhere to have that information. So I agree. We'll help you,
And what are some things that maybe we can do to help complement what you're doing and to help y'all as well? So,
I think awareness is
Okay.
great, like knowing we're here. And then I think, a special, if you knew someone who had a loss and who was having another baby, and if we could, appropriately like support, the family or anything like that, like very, very gently, if it was right,
Right.
as we grow and as you grow, if we need resources, or you're like, hey, we're going to do some fundraising, or we're going to do a volunteer day, or, I have a family who doesn't have any friends or family, maybe you can reach out, things like that. Like, I think those things make sense, but it's something, organically, I think it will grow because we're both kind of growing,
Right.
That's,
And I think
thought.
we can kind of get outside of our boxes, literally, things will change. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of curious, but I think it is just about it continuing to get out in the community and as we can. And like, I think you said it best, just let it organically happen. But just know that the other one's there and that it does complement one another.
Totally. I love that. Well,
Thank you, Brooke.
so much.
Who's Brooke? Is
I
that one
appreciate
Brooke?
it.
There we got some children. This is a real
I've been on
family
mute. I've been on
situation.
mute because I have my sidekick here who's very interested in our call. So
I love it.
but thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. I do appreciate it. Y'all are doing an amazing thing. And actually, when Sarah and I got the opportunity to visit, I was just telling her some of the buzz that I kind of hear within the community. And one of them actually was a conversation, I had with Anka. People know you're out there, and whatever we can do to continue to promote that. So y'all are doing a really amazing thing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, stay healthy
So-
and we'll see you on the other side. Good luck with
Sounds
your first meeting.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right,
Brooke.
ladies. Thanks so much. Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, y'all. Have a good one.